Leaders of European governments are meeting in Brussels today. They'll be discussing the continuing migrant crisis, but on the margins, David Cameron will be attempting to continue negotiations over Britain's relationship with the EU ahead of that in-out referendum next year or the year after. This lunchtime, he's meeting the European Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, who yesterday said that Europe needed Britain more than Britain needed Europe.
I am 150% in favour of having Britain as a constructive member state of the European Union. We need Britain. Personally, I don't think that Britain needs the European Union, but that's a matter of conviction. Others may have a different feeling on that. They will have the same feeling if ever Britain would leave the European Union.
That was Jean-Claude Juncker. Let's speak to our Europe correspondent, Chris Morris in Brussels. Chris, did Jean-Paul Juncker mean to say that Britain, in effect, that Britain didn't need Europe, but Europe needed Britain?
No, I don't think he did. For my sins, Andrew, I listen to him a lot, and sometimes he mumbles a bit. And don't forget, English is, I think, his fourth language. I actually thought he said, "I do think," rather than "I don't think." But in our office, we were split 50-50. 3 thought do, 3 thought don't. In the end, a bit of an online storm in a teacup, I guess, because I think he certainly meant, I do want Britain to stay in, and I do think Britain needs Europe. Yeah. If there's any doubt about that, he'll be, I think, discussing that with David Cameron over lunch. Somebody shouted a question to Mr. Cameron as he went in, "How's it gone?" And he said, "Well, we haven't started yet." And I think that actually rather sums up what many other countries feel. We haven't started yet. There have been months of technical talks between legal experts, but there is a sense of frustration that people still don't know exactly what it is on the political level that Britain wants. And, you know, there are officials saying, well, if Britain really wants to discuss this and get it sorted by the end of the year, sooner or later it does have to write something down or make it much more explicit exactly what these demands are. The problem for the government, of course, as soon as it gets written down, it gets leaked, and then various no campaigns trash it before it's even agreed. So it's difficult for Cameron, and I think people around Europe are willing to cooperate with him and work constructively, but they do need a bit more detail of exactly what it is he wants to achieve.
Well, if we're not expecting any great progress on Britain's renegotiation today, do we then have to wait? Is the next big step going to be the summit in December? Are we then expecting to hear what it is that Mr. Cameron wants?
Well, officials I've talked to say we need to hear before that, or they need to hear before that. Not an ultimatum, one of the people involved in the talk said to me, but if we don't know a month before that December summit exactly, precisely in political language what David Cameron wants, then we can't start discussing it with other countries. Don't forget, you know, legal experts, the head of legal services from 27 other member states are going to have to go through something which is written down and go through it with a pretty fine tooth comb. So we know broadly, you know, things like getting rid of ever closer union, making sure that countries that aren't in the euro don't get discriminated against. Very difficult indeed trying to restrict benefits for migrants from other EU countries, including possibly in-work benefits. We know broadly the kind of things which are asked about, but until it's written down in a club like this, a club which has got lots of written rules, other countries aren't going to give their precise opinion in return.
Okay, Chris Morris, thank you very much from Brussels there. This whole renegotiation strategy, it's got the real potential or the makings of a disaster for the Prime Minister.
It has. I mean, the whole thing starts to have a real emperor's new clothes feel about it, doesn't it? I mean, what is it the Brits are actually asking for? It's a perfectly fair and legitimate question from Angela Merkel and other European leaders. And, I mean, as I understand it, it's worse than December. It may not be really until March that the demands become clear. And the problem for number 10 is that they are in danger, having unleashed this process, they are in danger of being overtaken by events. Both campaigns in and out are now up and running and hurling abuse at each other. And there's a danger, if he doesn't get very much at all from this renegotiation, that it looks irrelevant.
And a lot of what he's asking for is almost just like the status quo. That we don't get dragged into the euro. Well, that's not going to happen. We don't want to be part of ever closer union. But it's clear that ever closer union now refers to the eurozone. The eurozone is going to continue with ever closer union. Mr. Hollande, Chancellor Merkel, they want that. We're not part of that.
That's true. To be fair to the government, what they would say is that Europe has been so preoccupied with the migration crisis, and before that, the Eurozone crisis, that actually they're only, I think the Treasury estimate is about 10 to 20% towards through negotiations. Having said that, Cameron set this running ages ago with his Bloomberg speech, and Cameron's critics in the Tory party say that he should have spent the last 2-3 years making speeches, going around European capitals, trying to win allies and mapping out an alternative view of Europe, which he hasn't done.
It's a story that will be with us for some time.
It will indeed. Now, it's